Freedom from heartache. While Lamentations 5 is meant to end in some sense of hope, the kind of hope that it projects is the kind of hope that you feel when you're so overwhelmed and drained, but that tiny little part of even your finger still believes that morning will come. Interestingly enough, Lamentations 5 is not Psalm 35, where weeping may last for a night, but joy comes in the morning. It is sort of its own kind of hope that blooms in the damp floors of a prison. It's the kind of hope that shows up at an addict's rock bottom. It's the kind of hope the prodigal son had when he resolved that he would go to his father as a servant rather than a son. Today is Independence Day. On this day, we celebrate freedom. But even more than that, we memorialize those who fought for this country's freedom. Our independence is hard won. It required the sacrifice of blood. It bloomed from protest and clawed its way through the dark depths of tyranny. And today we celebrate in the light of fireworks and sparklers. We celebrate with LED lights attached to our bikes and sit on the beach to enjoy the sunlight. That's for our rebels out there. The truth is, this nation was built on rebellion. The founders built this nation on saying no to a tyrant king. The Boston Tea Party made its way through the glories of history, yet is a violent protest. The point here is that the Protestant movement of Lamentations is not a glorified celebration. Instead, it is a reminder that we're building up a future from the wreckage of protest. Lamentations 5 is doing four main things. Number one, it reiterates the issue. Number two, it complains one last time. Number three, it addresses the issues again in light of God's glory, power, and sovereignty. And number four, it pleads with God one last time for reconciliation and restoration. But the ending of Lamentations 5, again, is not one of expectation of the morning, but rather hope for the restoration for a relationship with God. The tone of this ending is still solemn. It's still in a minor key. In most cultures, songs in minor keys are meant to convey sadness or reflection. One of the cultures that actually has some sense of celebration is in Jewish song. Minor keys are played with upbeat tempos, and it's actually a reflection of the Jewish community's history with God. There's pain, but there's also celebration. In those cultures that sing songs in minor keys, the minor key helps to convey that sad memorial of a deeper look into ourselves and our relationships. This is why R&B music is always in the minor. But in modern music, most songs start off in the minor key and either switches from the minor, which is a sad or reflective kind of thing, into a major, a happy or hopeful chorus. These songs typically end on a major to help the listener kind of end on a more happier and resolved tone. It's a sense of resolve. The listener can have some kind of hope at the end of the song. But Lamentations 5 is sung in a minor key and ends in a minor key. Why? Because the pain doesn't end. In light of our independence, the nation accomplished freedom from a bully. But just as the victims of bullying one day becomes the bully themselves, the system within the nation has the tendency to bully others. The work isn't finished. The journey toward freedom, the journey toward a true heaven isn't done yet. We wait for the miracle of God's intercession, and we definitely see pockets of God's intercession show up, but we don't see the systemic intercession. We see pockets of change, but the change doesn't come fast enough. By the time it comes, people have already died. Lamentations 5 resonates with the wave of emotions. It tries its hardest to cry out from the prison floor that justice will come and God will bring it. So what does this mean for us? Well, Lamentations 5 is a validation for those who are ashamed of the lack of movement and overwhelming sense of dread when you read the news and you see the same headlines over and over again. Lamentations 5 speaks for those who have no words when people are frozen with fear. Lamentations 5 is a healthier language for those who don't know what to say and just project any word that comes to mind because they are so angry. But most of all, Lamentations 5 is a conversation with God to ultimately reconnect with God. It's not an easy conversation to have with God, but it's still a conversation. It comes with both God and creation reconciling in the midst of tragedy and tension between both parties. It's God sitting in God's anger while creation sits in shame, but it's also God's solid stance that God will not leave. And in light of God's promise to never leave, the constant presence of God is a constant call to move from shame to correction and then to change. So my question for you today is, in what ways has God called you from that place of shame, from that place of darkness? What is it that you have to change to help the system change? What is it that you have to do to move so that the system can move along with you?